Hello, Leeds United fans. Hope you're all doing fantastically well. It is Connor here. We're back with some more content. Make sure you're smashing the like. Make sure you're getting your comments in the section below. And of course, make sure you subscribe to the One Leeds Fan Channel. Well, what are we talking about this evening, this fine Tuesday evening where nothing is going on? Nobody cares about any of the CFL or the Carabao Cup. Rubbish because Leeds United are not in it. Let's not talk about Salford. But anyway, I'm actually quite happy on a side note that we're not in this competition because I think it gives Leeds a little bit more time to focus. We've seen Spence, Nonto, Rodon all omitted from the squad recently. We don't need to see any more injuries. So Leeds can fully focus on the championship calendar, the championship campaign. And what better way to start this on Sunday at 12:30 in a blockbuster championship game as Leeds United take the trip to the South Coast to face an absolute dour at this moment in time, I should say, Southampton side led by Russell Martin. I wanted to get into the Southampton side. I wanted to get into how Leeds are going to be able to really dismantle this side if we play our game. Now, let's get into the specifics of it. Now, when I'm looking at a Russell Martin side, he was very, very decent at Swansea, I thought. Very possession-based, and the quality of his side was nowhere near of the quality of this Southampton side. The expectation wasn't as great as it was Swansea to Southampton. You know, a massive opportunity for him. And I personally thought it would come good, and it's still, and I think it will at some point come good for Russell Martin and Southampton. I think, however, it's going to take a January window. I think, however, it is going to take a mass bedding in period. But Connor, I hear you holler. Why are you talking about Southampton so much? Well, I want to talk about where I think Leeds United are going to massively, or can massively hurt this Southampton side. Now, they've lost 4 out of 4. When you've got that calibre of side, losing 4 out of 4, when you've had, in my opinion, a half-decent window, I think I made a little bit of a judgment on their window prior to everything happening with Southampton, where it kind of all kicked off within the last sort of 7 to 10 days of the transfer window, where you saw players like Nathan Tella, Kotchup, you saw players like Salisu, Ward-Prowse, obviously Lavia late on in the window, all leaving in a real transition. And we're going to get onto that in just a little bit. But losing 4 out of 4 when you have that quality, you can excuse losing some of those teams in that bracket, although I even look at Leicester at home, and we're all sat down watching that game thinking this is going to be a real battle for Leicester as well here. At that moment in time, you're thinking, okay, you know, 2 really balanced squads, 2 decent squads, but Leicester completely blew them away, and we're going to get into the specifics of why that happened and why, seemingly, in possession, out of possession, Southampton just are not clicking, and how that can be a real advantage for Leeds United. Middlesbrough, Leicester, Ipswich, Sunderland, Norwich have all taken a point or more. Southampton have conceded 10 goals at home. A lot of people do forget the 4-4 draw to Norwich at the start of the campaign amidst, you know, ridiculous results away from home, including a 5-0 drubbing of Ross Stewartless, who went to Southampton. Ross Stewartless Sunderland 5-0 on that day, and that was the day where they lost a winger as well. Sunderland on that day, Jack Clark being the firecracker for those for that side at the minute. Sunderland side who seem to be thriving aside from the result at the weekend. But when I've been watching Southampton, because I made a very outlandish prediction, which I didn't think was an outlandish prediction at the start of the window. I thought, you know, with that squad, which I've just spoken about, the squad originally before a lot of the, you know, the exodus, which makes it sound very negative, but the exits of many players and the big financial sort of rewards came in for Southampton. I was saying, look, with Russell Martin in charge of possession-based side, we've just seen Vincent Kompany's very pragmatic, very heavily possession-based, dynamic Burnley side romp the league. I thought there is real potential with a Nathan Tella, with a Gineppo potentially that have kept hold of him, to be dynamic, to be very, very good in possession with a Ward-Prowse, balanced out by a small bone. And you're looking at that side and thinking maybe that is going to be a side that's going to replicate what a Burnley did. Now, I did mention at the start of the season as well, I do think one team will run away with it this season. I do think one of the 3 that have come down have got enough quality to really run away with the division. You know, could be a Leicester, could even be Leeds if we catch up, of course. But what we're seeing with Southampton every single week is a lack of edge, a lack of ruthlessness, and a lack of composure in the offensive third. You've got a makeup of Adam Armstrong, You've got a makeup of Stuart Armstrong and, of course, Shea Adams, who we're all used to and Leeds have been rumoured to be interested in for the past 25 years. But I'm not really seeing a balance there. And if it is a front three, or sometimes it is a 2 and a 3 in possession, this Southampton side is not clicking. For me, you have to have a Dozy up top for that Southampton side. Obviously, the lad from Manchester City. But they're struggling where to play him. Do you play him on the left? Do you play him on the right? And I think they're really in a predicament at the minute where they're struggling to find a balance. Whereas Leeds, on the other hand, have found that balance. They've found that equilibrium within the front four, even with injuries. So when you're looking at the ruthlessness and composure up front, it isn't there. I think that is abundantly obvious. Even though Southampton started the season strong, but where they are in the form table now is a big issue. And as I mentioned, and I have mentioned previously with Leeds United in the Premier League, when it becomes a trend, when it becomes a pattern, these things happening every single week, controlling the ball, which they do, very heavily possession-based. But if you're not able to be composed in the defensive third and the attacking third, it means nothing. You can have 69, 75, 76% possession every single week. There is a high likelihood that you are going to get transitioned on at some point. A team is going to nick the ball off you and you're going to get counter-attacks, or one of your players is going to make a mistake. And that's what we've seen with Southampton. Mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake in possession. Recently, Mason Holgate, who got caught at the weekend against Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough, by the way, at the weekend could have had 3 or 4 more. They were all over Southampton at some points, which bodes very, very well for Leeds United. As I mentioned, the defending is hideous. This is something as Leeds fans we've experienced for a long time. But 19 goals in 8 games overall is huge. It is huge. And the biggest portion of those goals have come at home. And that's including a 5-0 drubbing away to Sunderland. So there's huge plaudits to see for Leeds United here. And when I looked at the transition and when I looked at what Southampton were doing in terms of playing a little bit of a high line against a Leicester side, which was massively naive, so naive, pushing the fullbacks high. Kyle Walker-Peters on one side, he was getting the furthest forward 100%, and they were just getting hit every single time. Mavdidi, Jamie Vardy, Keane Dewsbury Hall have an absolute play time in that midfield, and if you're able to hold out at the back, you're able to have a steady rear guard, which Leeds United have proven in the past 4 games, and you can hit the team, and you can hit that front line, hit that offensive, hit those offensive lines, which we can do very, very quickly. Southampton are in big trouble, and they don't seem to have a framework to be able to cope with that. Now, as an aside, what you can do with this Southampton side as well is high press them, because the inexperience that is riddled through the spine of that side, and especially at the back, when you're looking at Taylor Howard-Bellis, when you're looking at Shea Charles, when you're looking at a player in Mason Holgate who hasn't had many minutes over the past however many years, in possession as well, when you're looking at a Mason Holgate in particular, that should be a target for Leeds United with a high press. And I'd be really disappointed if we weren't targeting a Mason Holgate or a Shea Charles on the ball, even though we know they've come through the Man City Academy. I was bigging Shea Charles up at the start of the season, but I just don't think Martin's been able to get a tune out of him yet. And that's interesting when you're looking at the manager who's in charge at the minute. But the top flight minutes, I'm just looking at the inexperience within the squad combined with the quality. Now, we look at who they lost, and they made so much money in the summer. It's all well and good saying this in hindsight, but have they boosted that squad? The Leeds players have shown at this moment in time that this team right now would batter the team from last year, even in the Premier League. But when you're looking at the calibre of player and the experience that Southampton have lost and the quality on the ball, which is what I want you guys to all focus on from a defensive perspective and a midfield perspective, they've lost a hell of a lot. Lavia, Livramento, Teller, Ward-Prowse, Salisu, Carr, Perot and Kocher are big players when it comes to the framework of that Southampton side last year, albeit very, very poor. But if they'd have been able to keep hold of maybe 3 or 4 of those players, we might have seen an easier transition into the Championship. There's an argument that Leeds have actually done that, even though we've lost an absolute litter of players. But top flight minutes, when you're looking at Smallbone, Shea Charles, Flynn Downs, Holgate, Ryan Fraser and Joe Aribo, they've either not been consistent or they've not really been they've been they haven't been consistent, and they've not really been consistent at the top level as well. You know, even when you're looking at the top two divisions, minutes in those top two leagues. So you're asking a very, very inexperienced side with different qualities, a bit of a fragmented side, to come together and to get a top two position and to play a style of football which is heavily possession-based, which a lot of them won't have done before. And Russell Martin wants them to be possession-based, heavy and dominant in all games. And you can see that with his Swansea side, who he did very, very well with. My question is, how badly can Leeds United hurt this side? I think we can, and that's why the title of this video, the thumbnail, is damage. I think Leeds can damage this side badly. If we're able to hit them on the transition, there is and able to high press and able to really feed on their mistakes and be clinical, be ruthless and be composed. There is no reason why Leeds United cannot inflict serious damage on this Southampton side at the weekend. It's there for Leeds United. Southampton, in my opinion, when you're actually looking at it right now and you're taking a step back after the window, which we didn't do on the channel, but you take a step back after the window, look at what's happened to other teams, you think actually they need January quickly. And I think at this moment in time, Leeds United, comparatively, are actually set up better. And from a defensive standpoint, Joe Rodon's going to be welcome back. Hopefully we're going to see Willie Gnonto back in the fold very, very soon. Jed Spence, that's reducing every single week, isn't it? His time out. But at this moment in time, this Leeds United team are cooking on flames, and it is the worst team to come up against for Southampton. So let's hope we can continue this run and Leeds United can get a win at the weekend. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you think this is a perfect match for Leeds United, like I do, especially taking into account our fantastic away form at the minute? And do you think Southampton are in massive, massive trouble in general? Because, you know, these are one of the massive rivals of Leeds United when they've been relegated from the Premier League. Guys, fascinated to see what you think on this one. Let me know, and I'll see you in a bit.